I think it may be time to talk about Kai Havertz yet again. Now, after Arsenal beat Tottenham 1-0 in the North London derby at the weekend, there was obviously a lot of players getting credit. While we've already spoken about Jurrien Timber's brilliant performance, I think it's time to talk about one of the attacking players being Kai Havertz. And specifically looking at what Arsenal look like without Martin Odegaard and praising his contributions in a brilliant North London win. So let's get into it. I will preface this video by saying I am sorry for doing another Kai Havertz video, but I genuinely think he probably had the most interesting role in the Tottenham game, and I think there is some stats that I find really interesting which show yet again the contribution he is making towards the team. I also think it is more interesting looking at Havertz in a game like this where he had to play a different role which he's used to at Arsenal recent times, and in a game where he didn't score, so it may be caught off the eye a little bit of what he actually contributed to the game, but he did plenty. Now, first of all, Arsenal set up in the game against Tottenham in a kind of 4-4-2 setup which was interchangeable with players coming into midfield and moving out wide. While on the team sheet it said Havertz was up front and Trossard was in midfield, and a lot of times you kind of saw that as well. Havertz was freely moving into midfield and working off Trossard in many ways, and they sort of worked as a two, especially in out of possession play, but also when Arsenal had the ball down the wings and one of them would come back to help. This meant the average positions by both of these players look a lot deeper than the wingers. This is something that I think was quite expected in this game, where Trossard and Havertz were going to come deeper to pick the ball up and help with that progression, because I don't think you can trust Jorginho and Partey at all times, and also they can be quite pressed into a corner and lose the ball, which we did see a few times, especially in the second half. So Havertz and Trossard were coming back to help the fullbacks progress the ball upwards so they could get Arsenal on the break through the wings. This is why, of course, Martinelli and Saka have elevated positions on the pitch. Now, we've gone through it, but of course Arsenal didn't have a lot of possession in this game, and there was large points where they kind of left off it and let Spurs have the ball to try and see if they could break down their low block. Now, at the end of the first half, Arsenal didn't really like this because Spurs were getting a lot of time on the ball, so they did try to press the goalkeeper a lot more, with Trossard initiating it, going to the player with the ball on the left side, while Havertz was always shadow mark the midfielder Bentancur in case he presses past, but also making sure that he can get close to Vicario if they pass the ball back to him, which a lot of the time did force Tottenham into decisions they didn't want to make, and they had to go long, which we won the free balls in the air because they didn't have that midfield pressure. However, in times, especially earlier on in the game, Tottenham were getting a lot of pressure towards Arsenal's box, and Arsenal were in a low block situation. They had their 5 back defenders, their 3 midfielders, and their 2 attackers being Trossard and Havertz. Now, Havertz had to try and block any passes between the lines, specifically to Bentancur a lot of the time because he is a progressive runner with the ball, and he was very good at just stifling pressure, as well as Trossard was at many points, and making sure that they got a touch on the ball and able to get the ball out to Martinelli to break. Now, this was early on in the game and Arsenal were not getting a lot of time on the ball. Spurs were pressing them very intently and they kept giving the ball away in their defensive half, which was causing chances for Tottenham. This is when in the 28th minute you can see that Arteta signals to his team to stop passing it around unneedlessly and just kick the ball long. After this, we saw a different change for Arsenal, and David Raya started doing a lot of long kicks to Kai Havertz, which he was able to duel with the other defenders and pick the ball up as well. And you can tell Arsenal did this a lot because Raya's long ball to Havertz was actually the second most popular passing method that they did all game, with Ben White to Saka being number 1 with 11 attempted and Havertz and Raya being 10. And this worked because not only is Havertz obviously a very physical threat and he can get up against the defenders, he won 8 out of 13 aerial duels in this game, which is an incredible amount to get into, but also a high win percentage. But it also bypassed some of the issues Arsenal had passing it in the middle, with Jorginho and Partey getting pressed as well. This meant that Arsenal was so direct at times that Jorginho and Partey actually only passed the ball twice to each other the entire game, because Havertz was usually that middleman that was coming over to help them, as well as Trossard. And in moments like this, if you watch my video where I went through Havertz's history, which I did last week, for Leverkusen he was picking up these deep positions and marshalling the ball with players around him, making sure the ball went out wide and he can make that run in behind, which is something that I think he did really well in this game. And now he is a very versatile player and can move around into different spots, and in the first half I feel like he was picking up mostly the right hand side slot. Obviously Odegaard isn't there, and he was helping with headers on to people like Martinelli, who was playing a little bit more of an inside forward in the first bit. of the game and being able to run off of these players. He was coming deeper and progressing the ball, trying to give Saka some freedom down that side, and also allowing Saka to be deeper at times to press very intently. When Saka got a bit more tired towards the end of the game, we allowed him to drop off a little bit, and Havertz came in and was being the main presser for the team at that point. But while a lot of these things happened before Arsenal scored, when Arsenal scored their goal with Gabriel from their header, they decided to sit back a lot more than you usually would see Arsenal do. This is obviously because Arsenal couldn't get the control that they wanted with the team that they had out, and they knew in that low block situation that Spurs weren't really going to get at them because they hadn't really all game past the 20th minute. Now, while the low block is brilliant in its ways and people like Havertz were still in the box being a physical stature, heading the ball away and clearing it at times, sometimes you do need an out ball in case the pressure is just going to keep coming and coming. Now, there's a few players that I think did this really well. I spoke about Timber in my recent video, but this is something that Havertz also excels at. There was many times where he was running down the left wing with Martinelli, with Timber, to give them support in an overlap and come deep for a triangle pass. This is just how smart he is, how great of an awareness he does to allow people like Trossard or Martinelli to make the runs in behind when he can come deep, and vice versa with the players around him. And something that was always going to be an option is just the kick away for Arsenal, where they can keep the ball to Havertz and he can put it down for Arsenal to break. This happened a few times where we just booted the ball up there, wanted Havertz to hold on to it, and he does brilliantly, getting us a throw-in or a free kick up the pitch. And the work rate of this guy should not be understated. Just looking at his stats between the Arsenal ranks in this game are incredible. 295 intensive runs he did, off the ball runs 22, 31 pressures, 13 pressures in the final third, and 7 resulted in a turnover. This is just such a pressure reliever and gets Arsenal up the pitch so we don't have to keep defending every 3 seconds. And something I think that also should be stated is that this guy has played 3 90-minute games in the last 7 days, and I think he has ran around so much in all of them. I spoke about the Germany performances in my recent video, but the amount of work rate this guy is given per game, and the fact that Arsenal was still able to win without Martin Odegaard doing a lot of that running in midfield is because of Havertz and obviously Trossard as well, doing all of that to cover for Jorginho and Partey. And overall, I think there are some really great moments of Havertz in this game. The moment where he gets the crowd hyped in the corner after he wins a throw-in late on. The moment after the game where he breaks down of tiredness and you can see Timber consoling him. I think just shows how much he understands this means to us and how much he gives it his all in all these games. He makes the right runs when we need it and always will help the team. It's not about goal scoring. I don't need to keep saying that to you guys. But he still was a threat from aerial chances in the box. There was a few headers that he had which were unlucky not to go in, and it just gives Arsenal more options to be able to cross it into a striker or someone that's forward that is actually going to win them headers inside the box. But the main thing is his defensive work in this game was outstanding. His defensive stats are great, his duels are great, and he really is doing a lot for the team in any position. You can argue playing attacking midfield in this game or up front, and it doesn't matter because if you need someone to facilitate so many roles, if you need someone to run the channels, you need someone to win the headers, and you need someone to give you ground coverage, Havertz is that player, and I think he has become an almost vital component to how Arsenal work nowadays. Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry for doing another Havertz video. I will stop it for now. I just think he's one of the most interesting players that Arsenal have and in world football genuinely. But if you enjoyed this video, please go and watch my video about Timber where I break down his performance in this game, and if not, I'll see you in the next one.